Hey everyone, today I'm going to be trying something a little unconventional. I'm going to try and rank the burst potential of all Wrath of the Lich King specs in PvP. Now this isn't taking into account things that are just purely RNG, like, oh, I got Windfairy procs every single attack and I crit every single ability. I'm going to just try and take the most controlled burst that they can have and go with that.
Yeah, boy.
So let's get into it. Okay, so starting off first with the Blood Decay. They have a little more burst than you'd expect. It is a tank spec that has massive healing, but with Dancing Rune Weapon as well as Empower Rune Weapon, which resets the cooldown on all of your runes, so you instantly can get back 6 runes and just go Death Strike, Death Strike, Death Strike. It's not bad burst. It's still a DK, that's blood, and it's tank, so it's not the highest. So I will be putting it in low, however, it is going to be on the higher end. Now we have Frost Decays. Now with their Killing Machine procs, which gives them the guaranteed crit, then they have that 1-2 minute cooldown talent, which gives you a guaranteed crit on your next Frost Strike Obliterate. Very high burst potential. They can just start chopping you down, and then they even have the 1 minute cooldown Hunger and Cold to synergize with it, but we're not including that. Just their burst damage can be extremely high with a little bit of PvE gear. So I'll be putting them on the higher end of great, as it's not as controlled. You're still relying on some procs, but very high burst. Now in Holy Decay, they have insane sustain damage. Absolutely insane. They'll typically be the top damage in every single arena game. The only one that can even compete with them really is an Affliction Lock. So their burst suffers a little bit for all that sustain, but it's still not bad. They can still do decent damage with Death Coil chains. The Gargoyle is out, so it's not bad. I'm going to be putting them on the higher end of okay. I have Boomkins. So with Starfall damage up, they can do a ton, and then Starfire, Wrath can just hit pretty hard. It's not super high like you'll see some of these other casters, but it's still pretty good, and I'll be putting them on the higher end of great. Now Feral Druids, they have insane bites. They can ferocious bite someone for about 13,000 who are Resil geared, which is insane. So their burst is very high, but it's not really controlled. They can just, with good RNG, yeah, you can crit, get a big bite. But that's it, and then they have a lot of bleed damage, so they're more on the higher sustain. But the fact is, they can still bite for 13,000, and that's insane. So I'll be putting them on the lower end of great. And then we'll come back to this. They have Resto Druids. How high is their burst? It is not the highest, so we're going to put it on the lower end. Thinking about it, they can do some Wraths and some Moonfire, but most of the time, they're just be cloning anyway. Very low burst. And then we have BM Hunter. Very high burst during those 10 seconds of Bestial Wrath. Extremely high damage with a pet. And they can't be CC'd during it, so I'm going to be putting that on the lower end of best, as it's still not super high, but if they manage to get to the kill shot range, then that's insane burst. So BM is very high. I have Marksman Hunter. Very high burst, very controlled. It can do it every 10 seconds basically. Aim shot, Chimera shot, and eventually you get them to a kill shot. You can prep it. Pretty high burst. You have Armor Pin on a Marksman Hunter. You're attacking a mage. I mean, you can hit them for their entire health if you prep and they're not super geared or don't have shields on. So that's very good. So I'm going to be putting them pretty high. I'll probably be putting them just a little below BM, because BM with Bestial Wrath is still crazy. So Hunter's at the top. Very good burst. And now we have Survival Hunter. Very low burst. They have Lock and Load, which will proc, giving them another explosive shot off of Black Arrow ticks, but then Black Arrow can be dispelled, and Black Arrow is a dot anyway. So they're much more... Their burst just isn't super high. I mean, they're either the low end of okay or they're just in low. So that's where they're going to go. Arcane Mages, their burst is very high. If they can just stand there and snipe, their burst is super high. It's still lower, though, than these Hunter specs. And I'm trying to think if it's higher than a Frost Decay. If an Arcane Mage is just turreting, it's quite high. But I still think a Frost Mage is probably still higher, though. So I'll probably be putting Arcane a higher end of great. I'm kind of torn on this one, because I'm still trying to take into account, how often do you just stand there and you can cast everything as an Arcane Mage? It's like never. But a DK, a Boomkin, they have a lot more utility and ways to get those off. So that's why it's kind of hard to do this list, but I'm going to be putting Arcane probably right in between the two. But I'd say all three of these even all four of them are really close to each other. Okay, now we have Fire Mage. Their burst is a bit lower. They do not have the burst of Arcane or Frost. So I'll be putting them on the lower end of okay, but they can still, what they do so well in is running around, disarming everybody, disrupting them with Dragon's Breaths, and just doing good AoE damage with Living Bombs. So their burst suffers a lot. And Unholy DK definitely has more burst. And then we have Frost Mage, very high burst in a deep freeze with haste, Icy Veins, maybe Lust. You can chunk somebody. Do a Frostbolt, Ice Lance, Frost Firebolt. I mean, that could be half their HP, maybe more. So pretty high. I'll be putting Frost Mage. I think I'm just going to put it a little ahead of Arcane because they can reliably do that in PvP. But if this was a list of everyone could just do as much damage as possible and they're standing there sniping, then Arcane would be higher. But I'm still trying to put this in a realistic situation. Like, what is their real burst in PvP situations? So I'm going to be putting Frost just a little ahead of that, as in 1 5-second deep freeze, you can do insane damage. They can't do anything about it. Versus an Arcane Mage, they have to sit there and cast, and you can do a lot of things to stop that. And we have Holy Paladin. What is their burst like? They can do a little bit of Holy Shock damage, Judgment. It's pretty low overall. They can do a little bit though. I mean, it's all instant, so that's nice. So the burst is quick. I don't know. It's basically the same as Resto Druid. I don't know which one I'd put higher. The fact that you can guaranteed crit your Holy Shock with Divine Favor, I think would make me put it just a little higher. But these two are probably the lowest in the game. We'll see. Prot Paladin, they can actually hit quite hard and consistently with control. So they don't have any moves that hit insanely hard though. Like a Feral can hit for 13,000, but a Prot will just do a lot more DPS overall. Or, well, maybe not a lot more, maybe like the same DPS, but very consistently. So I will be putting them ahead of Unholy DK. Well, maybe not. Maybe they're right below Unholy DK. I guess you can save up Runic Power and have the fast globals to go coil, coil, coil on somebody. And then you have Empower Rune Weapon to do a full rune reset. So I guess I'd put them, they're pretty much either right ahead of Unholy or right behind it, I'd say. But their damage, just like Unholy, is actually very high. I mean, this spec does a surprising amount of damage. You run 2-piece PvE tier set, and it can give you, I believe, 20% more damage on your main ability, and maybe it even gives damage on another. I don't recall. I'll check. Maybe I'll put it in this video. And then we have Ret Paladin. Their burst is extremely high. You pop wings, you bypass 50% of all damage reduction, which includes resilience. This can hit insane hard. You pop wings, you go Crusader Strike, Divine Storm, Judgment, Exorcism, maybe Hammer of Wrath. I mean, you can do absolutely nuts damage. So I'm going to be putting Ret very high, and it's very controlled too. All three of these, Marksman and Ret, have very controlled damage. But Bestial Wrath is pretty insane. That 10 seconds is nuts. I mean, maybe Ret is still higher because their abilities are all just hard hitting and off the globe, or it's just every global you go. Crusader, Divine, Judgment, Exorcism, Hammer, Wrath. That can do huge damage. So I think I will put them just a little ahead of Marksman and just slightly behind BM, but all three of those are very close. I would say Ret's higher than Marksman though. Now we have Disc Priest. They have the most damage out of all the healers. They can go Offensive Penance, Mind Blast, Death, have some dots like Pain on them. So they have higher damage for sure than the other healers. Question is, are they better than any of the DPS? They might be better than Blood. I'm not positive about this, as I don't have the best comparison for a Blood DK. I suppose I would put them just right behind the Blood DK, but those are probably pretty close. I have Holy Priest, very low. They don't have a ton of damage. The Offensive Penance and the faster cast that Disc gets is nice. We're going to put Holy, probably, but they still have Mind Blast and Death, so it still probably is higher than the other two healers. Then we have Shadow Priest. They don't have a ton of bursts, but they still have insane sustain damage and great healing utility, everything else. So I'll probably be putting Shadow definitely in the okay section. They can do Mind Blast, Mind Flay, Death, so that's good. But the amount of damage that DK and Proc can do is pretty nuts. This one's a little hard for me to decide, as I've played, one of my main arena partners has played Shadow throughout the years, so I have a lot of experience playing with them. I think I would... DK definitely does more with the Death Coil spam with Empower. But with Shadow Fiend Mind Blast, it's still a lot of damage. Prots with the PvE set as well as Avenging Wrath is a lot of damage too. I would probably rank it like that. But all three of these, I mean, if this was just a sustained damage tier list, I mean, these three would pretty much be at the top. Now we have Ellie Shaman. Their burst is insane, and it's very controlled. You can go Flame Shock, Lava Burst, instant cast a Chain Lightning, or cast a Chain Lightning, and then the Lava Burst travels and hits them at the same time the Chain Lightning instantly hits them. And then you can shock, instant cast, maybe Rocket Gloves. So insane burst, I would say is one of the highest in the game. And you can do it basically every like 10 seconds other than the Nature Swiftness. So very powerful. And then you can run a haste setup so you can even turret more things to do. And then you could proc. You have a 1 in 3 chance to proc a duplicate cast for half damage. So that really adds into it. Now we have Enhancement Shaman. Their burst is very high, but it's not very controlled. It's all auto damage with Wind Fury procs and then Storm Strike. A lot of Enhanced Shamans don't run Lava Lash. So it's really Storm Strike, your shock spell, and then autos and Wind Fury. That's the bulk of your damage. And then your weapon enchant with like Frostbrand. So Enhance is definitely a bit lower, but still high. I'm going to be putting it probably in the great. Yeah, it's certainly higher than Unholy DK, I'd say, because you're still proccing Wind Fury. You know, I believe it's a 1 in 5 proc chance if you have nothing improving it. So you're still going to be getting that every couple seconds with melees, and that is good burst. So I'll put it. It's below Feral. It's definitely below Feral. It's below Boomkin. It's below all these for sure. It's close to Unholy, but I think I'll put it a little higher. And it has pretty decent damage too. Okay, we have Restless Shaman. They can go cast a Lava Burst and then instant Nature Swiftness, a Chain Lightning, but it's still pretty low. It's probably still lower than Priest, but it's higher than Druid and Paladin. Yeah, the instant cast adds a little bit of burst, the instant shock, as well as the instant Nature Swiftness spell. And Lava Burst can hit, you know, as the rest is still for like 4,000. That's not bad. Okay, now we have Affliction Warlock. Their damage is insane, but their burst isn't amazing. It's not horrible though, and they in a way have a really good burst because once you get things to like 30-ish%, you have that Drain Soul Execute, and that ticks extremely hard, which I would consider burst because it ticks pretty quickly. I'll put that probably put it just right below Fire, I'd say, because you know they don't have anything in particular that just hits really hard. You know, everything's dots. So yeah, Affliction's going to be lower like that. Yeah, they're definitely going to be about there. I mean, maybe ahead of Fire, but no, Fire's probably still higher. Then we have Demo Lock. They can do pretty good bursts when they have their Demo form up. They have Immolation Aura. They can coil and just do pretty decent damage. The Felguard hits hard. So I'll put them on the higher end. They're definitely going to be in great. They're ahead of Unholy DK, definitely. I'd say they're ahead of Enhance. They might even be higher than Boomkin and Feral, maybe Mage. They're definitely up there. They have high damage though. It's not super bursty. It's not, because of that, I guess I put it on the little lower, I guess, but still pretty high. And now we have the Destro Lock, the partner in crime to the Ellie Shaman. You will see some of the best 3s comps will be running Lock Shaman Healer. Typically a Resto Druid, but it can also do extremely well with the Holy Pally. It can even do really well with the Disc Priest. I believe it can even run with a Resto Shaman. However, I haven't tested it and I haven't really seen too many doing it, but these two combined are extremely powerful and they can pretty much run the 3s ladder. Even in 5s, they're both very good. They're okay. They're pretty decent in 2s as well. But the burst that Destro does, Curse of Elements, and then you go Shadow Fury, Chaos Bolt, Conflag, Shadow Burn, maybe you get an instant backlash, Incinerate, and then Death Coil. You're doing absolutely busted damage. I would put them higher than Ellie. Their burst is insane. Whenever I think of Wrath burst, I always think of Destro. And even way back when I played Wrath, I remember dueling people in Durotar, and there was this one lock that he was just so good at doing the burst, but he would kill everybody so quickly in duels. So that's where I put them. These two are certainly the highest, and that's part of the reason they're the best in 3s. And I have Arms where their burst is very high, and it's somewhat controlled with Recklessness, Blade Storm. But a lot of it depends on your crits, and then maybe you're getting some procs, or you're waiting for your Rend. But Arms Warrior hits very hard, and it does have pretty good burst. I think I would be putting it somewhere in the middle of great, because their damage is insane and the pressure is very high with Unrelenting Assault and MS, but the overall burst is definitely lower than everyone in the best section. It's certainly lower than everything up there, and I would put it lower than Frost DK. I'd put it lower than Frost Mage. I would put it lower than Arcane, and I'd probably put it lower than boomkin. So yeah, I'd put them there, and but they're close to feral. Now we have Fury Warrior. This one is similar to Arms Warrior in a way, but it doesn't have the Blade Storm, which is a very powerful on-demand cooldown, and it's got a little less burst, I'd say, because it doesn't have the rend giving you the guaranteed overpowers. So you're mainly just doing Bloodthirst, and then you'll get a proc slam and then whirlwind. It's decent. It's probably gonna go somewhere on the lower end of okay, or it might even be like the lower end of great. I'm not positive on this one. Take this with a grain of salt, but I'll probably be putting on the lower end of okay. I have Prot Warrior. Their burst is actually crazy. If they have full armor pin, their burst is one of the highest in the game. I would be putting theirs certainly at the top tier. One without PvE gear though would be going it'd probably be going about here. Maybe, actually no, it'd probably be around here. Yeah, their burst without PvE gear would be about here. But with really good PvE gear, it's going to be... I mean, it's probably going to be like near the top. It's so crazy how much damage they can do with a charge, shockwave, concussion blow, heroic throw, devastate, a huge shield slam. Yeah, they can hit very high and it's very controlled. And then they control it with recklessness as well. So yeah, they're definitely in the top 3, I'd say, or top 4. I'd probably put them around here, assuming PvE gear. I'm assuming all of these have PvE gear as well. Assassination Rogue, their burst isn't super high, but they have crazy sustain. They're definitely be going in the okay list. And pretty much everything in the okay is just high DPS that doesn't have the highest burst, as that is the trade-off. So I'll be putting them probably... It's higher than Affliction. It's higher than all these. It can do decent bursts. It's slower though than DK and Shadow Priest, I believe. Probably a little lower than Prot Warrior. So probably about here. I think I'd probably put it a little ahead of Fury Warrior. So right in the middle of okay. I have Sub Rogue, very high burst. You have armor pin gear, it's even crazier. I would be putting it probably at the lower end of best. Or maybe just a little ahead of Marksman Hunter. I'm not sure. I would say Rets is higher though. I'd say everything over here is higher. So it's really... I would put it ahead of Frost DK. So then that just means putting it whether it's ahead of Marksman or not. Marksman has on-demand bursts all the time, but Sub Rogue also has it every minute. Sub Rogue with Dance is pretty crazy damage. Just ambush, 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 ambush. Maybe you're playing Blood Elf and you don't even have to Garrote, so you just silence them. So that's pretty high. Yeah, that would be higher than Marksman, I'd say. So yeah, I'll put them ahead of Marksman in best. And I have Combat Rogue, one of the most gimmicky specs in the game. Ever Killing Spree, which lasts for about 2 to 3 seconds on, I believe, a 3-minute cooldown, hits extremely hard with full PvE gear. Basically the highest burst in the game, I'd say. You can kill people from full. So I think I will be putting them at the very top. But bear in mind, out of all these specs at the top, this is the most gimmicky, and really it's not the best. It is the best burst on paper. You can open it on a mage with full armor pin gear, and let's say they don't have an ice barrier up or anything. You could basically just go silence, pop like a DPS cooldown trinket, and you just hit Killing Spree, and you can kill them from full. No joke. Not exaggerating whatsoever. So I will put them at the very top, as no other spec in the game can actually do that. A lot can hit someone over half their HP consistently every like 20 seconds, and pretty much so can an Lich Shaman. Same with Warrior. But they can do that once every like 3 minutes for 3 seconds. That's basically Combat Rogue. And it's, if you know it's coming, you know they're combat, it weakens it significantly. And if you cluster people together, that counters Killing Spree because it hits whoever's right next to you. So it has some counterplay as well. And now I have Guardian Druid, which does not exist. This is actually going to be a Preg Paladin, the 4th Paladin spec. It is similar to Ret in that it has good damage, it has decent burst, it has better healing than Ret, but it does not have the burst that Ret has. It can still hit pretty hard. It gets the Reckoning procs, which gives it double melee procs, but it's doing less damage overall, and it has one less DPS ability because you're trading Crusader Strike and Divine Storm for your Shield of the Righteousness. So you're losing 2 DPS buttons, but you're gaining 1. So I'll be putting them a little lower, and you have the one-hander, so it does hit less burst-wise. I will be putting it a little ahead of Enhance, though, because it still can hit super hard. But Enhance is pretty close to it. I mean, they're pretty much partners in crime, so they're going to go about there. And that is my attempt at ranking all the specs in Wrath for their burst potential. I think this is pretty accurate. The only things I'm a little unsure on would be where exactly Arcane Mage would go, where exactly Boomkin would go. I feel pretty confident though putting them at the top of Great. And everything in this okay list has insane damage, but they do not have the burst ability that anything in the best or the Great has. If you guys like this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next one.